Welcome to Monza in Italy for the 10th and final race in the International Formula. Here, notice any differences between two cars? You wouldn't, would you? Because they are painted the same colour, because they're from the same team. Here, 2 laps from the end of the season, the drivers conspire to wreck both the team's cars and take them out of the race. Verthime passes under yellow flags the debris. He has 1 lap to go, or less than that now. He's already threaded his way to the Rettifilio and has really been the class of this year's field, with last year's team champions Arden Motorsport. Alongside him on the grid, Giorgio Pantano, and Pantano is narrowly outpaced in the qualifying session, and with 41 points in the championship coming into this race. Pantano for the Durango team has certainly been the Arden drivers' stiffest consistent challenger. Third spot on the grid for Coloni. This weekend their cars bearing allegiance to the island of Sicily, courtesy of the Sicilian Tourist Board, is Riccardo Sperafico. And Patrick Friasaca, winner of the race at the Hungaroring last time out, starts in 4th place. Enrique Toccicello and Jeffrey Van Hooydonk making a welcome return, financially able to take up his place on the grid. He starts in 6th position ahead of Townsend Bell and Raffaele Gianmaria. New name to conjure with in the number 9 position on the grid, Montanari, being subbed in this weekend. Ferdinando Monfardi. Montanari joining the championship for the first time to take over after Ralph Furman was declared unfit, and Zolt Baumgartner was once again drafted into the Jordan team and Formula 1 duty. So Christian Montanari, his Formula 3000 debut for the Coloni team, qualifying in 9th place, and the Coloni team clearly giving him a good setup to work with. So the end of the warm-up lap, cars coming onto the grid, and Bjorn Verthime from his 5th pole position in 10 efforts, despite the track conditions during qualifying, which were not really that easy. Lots and lots of fallen leaves on the track as the breeze blew them around, making grip a little tough to come by. Res Rise for the 15-car grid. Sam Hancock at the back in the Jordan Junior car, and away they go. A little bit of tyre smoke from the front couple of rows, bit too much from Bjorn Verthime as Pantano gets in front of him, and around the outside comes Patrick Friasaca, the Red Bull Junior driver, moves up into 2nd place. Pantano first, then into the Rettifilio, and 2nd is Pantano across the grass. Well, across the green concrete go a couple of them. The 2nd of the Coloni cars of Cristiano Montanari, one of them. But it seems we have 15 runners exiting the Rettifilio and heading into and now out of Curva Grande for the first time. Down to the Roggia, the 2nd of the chicanes, and Verthime making a stiff challenge down the inside of Patrick Friasaca. Let's see what the camera has picked up. Friasaca has lost out there. Verthime kept his car on the road. Friasaca running wide further back. The 2nd of the Durango cars, Raffaele Gianmaria, also runs wide. Race leader then from 2nd on the grid, Giorgio Pantano. And Pantano desperate to try and take 2nd place in the championship. Vitantonio Liuzzi making his move further back, qualified only in 12th place. He is also battling with Pantano for runner-up spot in the championship, and the man who fared so well until he was disqualified after a strong race in Hungary, now looking a real outside shot for that position in the championship. So this final race of the year then at Monza, 26 laps. It's one of the longest laps in the championship here, and as a result one of the shortest number of laps in terms of keeping it at the same race distance. Started back at Imola in April, of course, at the other Italian Grand Prix track, the Circuit Enzo Edino Ferrari in the Republic of San Marino. And there is 1 San Marinan driver and 6 Italians in the 15-car field. Perhaps we should rename this the Italian Formula 3000 Championship for this weekend. So Giorgio Pantano then, with Bjorn Verthime now safely established back in second place. Van Hooijdonk, Sperafico and Toccocello following through. And still, Vitantonio Liuzzi trying to put in a move out to get himself out of trouble. And see the tyre smoke away from the Arden car on the outside of the grid. And that's really as much the racing line as anywhere else. It's such a wide straight here at Monza. It does get used in all different parts. And Pantano into the first corner, safely ahead. Verthime in third place, the first of the red cars. And across the grass there going Van Hooijdonk. As Toccocello rather, as he put the yellow machine across the dirt. And Van Hooijdonk following suit as well. So Pantano leading then, and Verthime safely established now back in second place. Third spot behind him is Friasaka. Then Van Hooijdonk, Sperafico. There the yellow and red car coming down the straight, nose to tail. Sperafico in the red machine trying to pick up a toe in the Coloni car. As Verthime comes across the line behind Pantano. Let's see what's happening here. And yes, a very successful tow by Sperafico. Well, the cameras didn't pick it up, but certainly into Parabolica. He used the tow out of the Variante Ascari to get onto the brakes and to drive down, well, around the outside or up the inside. Guesstimate would be up the inside. And pick up that place. Raffaele Giammaria in the second Durango car. As you saw his teammates, Giorgio Pantano out front, being caught by Bjorn Verthime. And Verthime now all over the back of Pantano. I wonder if Pantano started the race possibly with a brand new set of tyres and reserved his tyres during qualifying and managed to keep a clean set for the race. Vertheim's been able to do that a couple of times. It gives you a big advantage in the first 2 or 3 laps, or perhaps only the first 2 laps here at Monza on this long, fast lap. And now, certainly it seems that Pantano's early spurt has been matched, and he's been reeled in by Verthime. Friasaka third, fourth Sperafico on his own. Then Van Hooijdonk in the yellow car with Toccocello, the other yellow car behind him. Verthime for a moment or two sitting behind, but here we go again onto the long straight down to the Parabolica, and already Pantano over on the driver's right of the track. Verthime goes around him, but he'll give a tow back. Pantano not close enough to get in front, and these cars missing the topmost element of the wings here, not the really enormously trimmed out rear wing you might imagine. Here at Monza you still need plenty of grip, even though you want to get rid of as much drag as possible. But of course modern cars very much engineered to deny drag while they produce grip. Now let's see who went off in the dust there. Oh dear. The number 2 car is Townsend Bell, the second of the Arden cars, on the outside and trying to argue the point there into the Parabolica. So Raffaele Giammaria gets away with that one. Townsend Bell, we can scratch him, unfortunately, from the final race of the year. And Verthime, as they come down into the Roggia, still in the lead. 4th place Sperafico then. 5th still Jeffrey Van Hooijdonk. And TJ Townsend Bell runs away across the gravel. Disappointing end to a season that I think he hoped would perhaps offer him a little more in terms of success and results. But it's a very tough championship to come into and to really learn well. And frequently second, perhaps third year is the one in which you really make the biggest impact. Again, you see the fallen leaves on the track. It is a major park, the park at Monza. It's not just nominally a parkland circuit. It really is a very big and historic former royal hunting park that the racetrack is set in. You can't imagine too many other sporting venues that would have continued in a green area like this. But one of the problems is that when you're in the trees, particularly this time of year after a long hot summer, and there Giammaria also paying the penalty for that clash with TJ Bell, Townsend Bell, as he is forced out. I would imagine deranged suspension and probably a fairly major vibration as a result. Came in to get it checked and the team said, uh-oh, I don't think that's going anywhere. So 5 laps in then, Bjorn Verthime leads Giorgio Pantano, and closing in from behind is Patrick Friasaka. This could be an interesting little mid-section element of the race. Well, we'll continue with our action here in Monza in a moment or two. Welcome back to Monza. Bjorn Verthime leading after the first 5.5 laps. Giorgio Pantano got away better at the start. So too did the man who's currently in third place, Patrick Friasaka, as poleman Verthime got too much wheel spin in his Arden machine. But he has managed to get past first Friasaka and then Pantano. Sperafico in fourth place also made a couple of passing manoeuvres down this long slipstreaming straight out of the Variante Ascari and up to the Parabolica, and he got past Jeffrey Van Hooydonk, who is the first of 3 yellow cars. Van Hooydonk, Toccacello and Tony Schmidt, 2 Astra Omega cars sandwiching the Jordan Junior car of Toccacello. And Vitantonio Liuzzi trying desperately to work his way up the order still from a desperately poor 12th place in qualifying. So the lead trio all still in sight of each other, but at the moment Verthime with nearly 7/10 of a second, 2/3 certainly between him and Pantano, is not safe exactly, but not likely to be challenged at any immediate moment. So Pantano having a little bit of the head shakes there as he exits the Rettifilio. Around Curva Grande and down to the Variante della Roggia, the second of the chicanes introduced to slow the cars down in the mid-70s here at the high-speed slipstreaming Monza Bowl. Into the first of the Lesmos. First one is not the really tricky one. The second one is the critically important one. Fast turn in, fast exit has got to be absolutely spot on down the straight, or the long left-hand curve, and then the straight down under the bridge into the Variante Ascari. It's another potential slipstreaming place, but more important than that, the second of the Lesmos is a very easy corner in which to go off. It's a fourth gear, 150-mile-an-hour plus corner, and that does make it a very, very demanding place indeed for these drivers. And quite often you do see a driver who gets out there into the loose having one monster moment. And generally cars don't tend to come back out of that gravel trap. From Ascari, they go down the straight to the Parabolica. And again, if you run out wide in the Parabolica, which starts tight and opens up, if you think it opens up a little more than it does and end off bouncing over into the dirt there, as Mark Blundell and many others have done over the years, you end up having the mother and father of all high speeds as well. Down the long straight into the first of chicanes, the Rettifilio, and still not much to choose between these guys. 20 laps remaining, so 6 in the scorebooks already. But again, Bjorn Verthime just chipping away, maybe even 2/10 on that lap now, to extend his gap over Giorgio Pantano to very nearly a second. Pantano does seem to be working the steering an awful lot on the Durango car. Maybe that's just my imagination, but he really seems to be fighting this car a little more than perhaps you might expect on race day. Friasaka in third place, perhaps getting closer to Pantano. Again, using all the curb there, but being very careful to stay away from the edge of it. Just outside the 3 yellow cars, tailed by Tony Schmidt, Vitantonio Liuzzi in 8th, ahead of Jaroslav Yanes, who he qualified right behind, and Alessandro Piccolo, who he qualified right in front of. He has picked up a couple of places, 3 places in fact. The retirement of the second Durango car of Raffaele Giammaria after a clash with Townsend Bell, who also went out in the number 2 Arden car, literally number 2, and also Christian Montanari, the second of the Coloni drivers, did not get away well at the start, got to bundle down the order a couple of times from 9th on the grid, which was a pretty impressive qualifying debut. He's now running down outside the top dozen. Sam Hancock, the Jordan Junior driver, right at the tail of the field in this 15-car entry. He now tied with the slimmest Formula 3000 entry ever. And I'm sure there'll be an awful lot of hard work over the winter by the teams involved. And also the teams who are not involved at the moment, the DBA Dembla Arvis team, were hoping to come back for the last couple of races this season. They've had such financial troubles that they've had to withdraw. They haven't been seen since the French Grand Prix support race at Manicourt. As Enrique Toccocello in slow-mo is shown getting in too hot. And it's me, 2x2. Down there into Parabolica. Lots of outbraking going on further down the field. Little disappointing then that the Italian director is deciding just to stay with Giorgio Pantano and his exploits. Bjorn Verthime, incidentally, looking to beat 2 records here at Monza. Currently on 68 points, the highest total ever scored by a driver in a single season is 71 from rangy English driver Justin Wilson in 2001, his championship winning season. And he will need 5th place or better to beat that, so either he looks like he's going to win or retire at the moment, so that's as far as he can say, a record that will be heading in his direction. And the other one is for podium finishes. 9 top 3s in 10 races. That would be a 90% podium finishing rate. Justin Wilson in a 12-race season scored 10 podiums in 2001. It's an 83.3% podium finishing rate. So that would be a big step forward. Of course, only having a 10-race season does make the percentage mathematics a lot easier for dunderhead simpletons like me. And here we are down to the tail of the field then. The BCN cars. Alessandro Piccolo, Fernando Montanari being joined by Christian Montanari and Ferdinando Monfardini being joined by Christian Montanari. Too many Montanaris in my head, I'm afraid, for this. And the battle further back. Well, Speraffico on his own in a tedious 4th place ahead of Van Hooydonk. And Schmidt, Liuzzi, Jaroslav Yanis, Alessandro Piccolo behind him, the red car at the top of the picture. Liuzzi still chasing. Well, Liuzzi was really expected to produce some spectacular fireworks this season, and I suppose in one way or another he has a little. But it could have been a bit better for him. Tony Schmidt also, the East German from Leipzig, just 11 points scored this year. Debuted with PSM last year, this is his 2nd season. But he's only been racing cars since 1997, when he started in the Junior Formula Renault category. In the pits is Riccardo Speraffico, not only a lonely race, but a lonely pit caller as well, on his own. Tony Schmidt upping his game, qualified in the top 10 in the last 4 races before here, and 10th again this time. So Speraffico in and out of the pits. It's Antonio Liuzzi, or Tonio, world karting champion in 2001. Spectacular progress through the Formula A and Super A world karting ranks. European champion back in 1999. Comes from Jarno Trulli's hometown, another great ex-karter. And Liuzzi, well, he'll certainly be the top rookie in this year's championship. Pole position sitter in Hungary. And the Red Bull Junior team as it is, that runs Liuzzi. Whoops, as we see a little bit more gravel trapping going on. You don't often come back too successfully from the gravel there. Monfardini managed to do so, though. Fernando, another ex-karter, started in Italian Formula Renault in cars. I'm sure they don't teach you to do that in Formula Renault. Raced in the Formula Renault Euro Cup for the Durango squad. And just 18 years of age. Born in 1984. Oh, Charlie. That's scary. They say about policemen getting younger. So 3rd 18-year-old in the Formula 3000 record books. The two who preceded him at that age, Jaroslav Yanis, who's still on the grid, of course, and Fernando Alonso, who isn't, but has become Formula One's youngest ever winner. I wonder if the other two 18-year-old Formula 3000 drivers this year will manage to chip away at that. It seems with the stasis in Formula One, probably unlikely at the moment. Into the pits, the 6th car of Enrico Toccicello. And it is at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, that I give up trying to lap chart it, because I can't keep up with the cut-about camera work. But away he goes. Jordan Junior team get him back on the road. No problems for them. And still, the Arden driver, Bjorn Verthime, leading the race. I'd expect the Jordan Junior team to be fairly proficient. Supernova, as they are often, or have previously been known. This track, one that Supernova has never won on, as is Hungary, and that looks like it's going to continue. Enrico Toccicello, we just saw in the pits from Rome. 15 laps to go out of the 26 started. Riccardo Sperfico out of the pits, safely on his way, pushing hard, but it's Bjorn Verthime who is our race leader at the moment. Two on his way through the Rettifilio. We'll be back in a moment after these short words. Welcome back to Monza. Bjorn Verthime leading for Arden Motorsport. Giorgio Pantano now 2.8 seconds behind him. Pantano, the early leader, got away superbly from pole position. Verthime dropped down to 3rd place into the Rettifilio for the first time. Pushed down by Friasaka as well, and took 3 laps to get back in front. And since then, he has just driven away from Pantano in 2nd place, Patrick Friasaka in 3rd spot. Verthime, 23 years of age. And the Swede is already crowned champion here. More pit callers further back. Antonio Liuzzi, we're watching here in the 2nd of the Red Bull cars. Woo, skating into the Rettifilio. As coming out of the pits, Tony Schmidt in his Astra Mega machine desperately tried to avoid losing that little bit of track position there. Coming straight out, he just didn't have a head of steam enough to make it down into the Rettifilio in front. And Liuzzi calmly kept his nerve and inserted the car into what tiny little gap was left. Behind him, Enrico Toccicello, who we also saw in the pits. So Liuzzi ahead of Toccicello as they've come out in pit order, and they went in with Liuzzi 2 spots behind Toccicello. So from that point of view, certainly it's been a bonus for Vitantonio Liuzzi. This is something, obviously, that introducing pit stops was intended to try and do. Jiggle up the order a little bit, perhaps introduce some unpredictable uncertainties. Predictable uncertainties, Martin, there's something for the brain to crunch with. Jaroslav Yanis in the ISR machine you're looking at there, the number 14 car. And in the pits is the other Coloni car, Cristiano Montanari. If there's any relation to Giovanni Montanari, it's been bugging me and I haven't been able to find out. Giovanni Montanari, who I remember from the early 90s racing in Formula Opel in the Euro Series, and then moved on into Formula 3, and kind of lost track of him there. I don't know if they're related in any way, shape or form or not. Can't tell you. Answers on a postcard, please, to the usual address, i.e. chuck it in your bin. It's an entirely rhetorical question. But it's the sort of information, obviously, that a snappy and well-prepared presenter like myself really ought to have at his fingertips, and tragically doesn't. So Jeffrey Van Hooydonk leading this little group then at the moment in the 12 car. Van Hooydonk making it to the final race of the year, scraping up enough budget desperately to get himself back in the seat again. Van Hooydonk, one of those drivers I've always thought probably with a little bit of consistent backing would have been an awful lot, able to show an awful lot more than he has been so far. And of course, when we're looking at these battles here, not all of them strictly like for like, because of course we have had some cars in this group in the pits and some have not been in the pits, and therefore lap chart nightmare continues. But still, three good slipstreaming pairs. Van Hooydonk in the lead. Let's see if Liuzzi's got a move for him. Has a few little wiggles of the steering wheel and thinks about it, but that was never happening, was it? So Verthime and Pantano still to start. Alessandro Piccolo ditto. Monfardini in fourth place ditto. Patrick Friasaka. Did we see him in the pits? Oh, now I'm scratching my head. If he's down in fifth place, either he's doofused somewhere or he has been in the pits. I think he has just been in the pits, Patrick Friasaka. Dropped then from third to fifth spot. So that's not bad at all. Midway point, 13 laps completed by the race leader who remains, Bjorn Verthime. Wonder when he will come in. Generally, if there's nothing much to lose and he's got a reasonable gap, sort of the sooner the better, perhaps. It's generally my kind of view on it, because if you do have a problem in the pits, you don't want to leave yourself just 5 or 6 laps to try and get by somebody who might have slipped by. The longer you have, then the better it might be. Of course, the lighter your car on the fresher tyres, the quicker you're going to go at the end, so you might want to leave it a little longer if you're in a tough scrap, and maybe give yourself some spare time to get on with things. Dear oh dear. Well, that's the end of the Durango team then. Giorgio Pantano rolls to a halt. Started outside front row of the grid, led for 2 laps, and now retired. And no sign of what that might be. Let's have a look here into the Rettifilio, and nothing. Well, no wheels fell off it, and he didn't hit anything substantial with it. I think that possibly, therefore, relates to something just rearward of his ears, or well, the back of his head more accurately, I suppose. Engine stroke drivetrain, and doesn't seem to be an awful lot else that it possibly could be. Could be an electrical thing rather than an engine failure, but basically if it stops making a noise, we generally say that's engine, don't we? And if it makes a noise but stops moving, we generally say that's drivetrain, because we like generalizations. Generally, Bjorn Verthime having a very good race, if you can ignore lap 1 and 2. Start from lap 3, and he's been unheaded. And oh dear, nothing in his mirrors and absolutely nothing on the horizon. He's going to need a telescope to see anybody else at this rate, and still out there. Again through the falling leaves as they head out of the Lesmos, and everybody keeping it off the gravel out of the first and hopefully out of the second of the Lesmos. It's Antonio Liuzzi still unable to make a move, dropping back a fraction there. Behind him Tony Schmitz and Jaroslav Janis. Jaroslav Janis, another driver who perplexes me a little, because when we first caught sight of him, oh boy, did he really seem to be something pretty special. Quite significantly touted, but also did seem to be quite significantly talented. A few spot drives he sort of appeared in Formula 3 and Palmer Audi cars. He seemed to be really quite quick, and 3000, well, very young, but maybe up against a bit of a brick wall. I don't know whether it's in terms of ability to handle the cars, the race distances, or the engineering side of it. Not entirely sure what the answer to that question might be, but Jaroslav Janis certainly seemed to have a head of steam behind him when he arrived in 3000, and that's rather kind of, I don't know, blown out a little bit. Still very young, raced for Nordic in 2001, ISR Charus in this season, of course. Youngest man to start a Formula 3000 race, that was at Monza in 2001. And still precociously young. Should have been teamed this weekend with Oliver Tichy. I always thought he was Belgian for some reason, but Austrian driver. But apparently his return to Formula 3000 didn't get out of the pit lane. Still, Yanis now with the bit firmly between his teeth, and this is definitely shaping up for something. Maybe not down into Ascari. It's very, very tough to try and take anything other than the racing line into Ascari. You really have to be lapping somebody prodigiously slow. Out of the pits. Quite sure what was going on there. Ooh. And what are we seeing? Enrique Toccacello being rudely assaulted from behind. I don't think he'll have been wildly infused by Christian Montanari's attack there. Montanari, incidentally, racing for Coloni in the Italian Formula 3 Championship this year, second in the points, behind Fausto Ippoliti, won last time out at Mugello. Not going to repeat that with a sensational young charger wins 3000 debut at Monza type story, but I think a not unrespectable start anyway to, well, who knows what kind of a Formula 3000 career he may end up with. He may be a name to conjure with in years to come. Bjorn Verthime, sort of think might well be as well. Who's following Super Swede Ronnie Peterson's footsteps. It's going to be very tough for anybody. I think Verthime is a mature enough driver, certainly, and has been extremely well guided by Christian Horner's Arden team. Started in cars in Sweden in Formula Ford, won the championship in '97. He was third at the Macau Grand Prix in a Formula 3 car in 2001. And he is intent on becoming a Formula 1 driver, as we see Liuzzi not, and Yanis thinking about but not making a move into the Parabolica. Bjorn Verthime won this race last year. That was his... that will round out his 12-month cycle of wins fairly succinctly if he can knock another one together. And as Verthime becomes drivers' champion, so Arden Motorsport steamed away in the middle distance in terms of the team's championship as well. Partly courtesy of Townsend Bell's third place last time out, of course, in the Hungaro ring. First American driver ever to get on an F3000 podium. From San Luis Obispo in Southern California. But unfortunately out of the race some while ago after a clash with Raffaele Giammaria going into the Parabolica. Giammaria made it through, Bell made it into the gravel and no further. And again, starting to get a little bit frustrated around here. Dear, dear. A little bit surprised by prodigious amounts of braking by Alessandro Piccolo. Not quite sure what he thought he'd seen there. Monza hair or something darting across the track in front of him. Liuzzi and Yanis sticking to their task of making everybody's life a misery in front of them, or the pair of drivers in front of them a misery, as Verthime rattles off yet another fastest lap. And in the pits, the Coloni, the BCN car rather, Coloni car, the car of Alessandro Piccolo. So is that him standing on the anchors? Ooh, that was a very untidy slide. Can Yanis take advantage of it? I think he might. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Come on. Oh dear. Not quite able to get close enough through Curva Grande. And whoa, Liuzzi also trying to take advantage, it seems, of a mistake this time. Liuzzi is unsuccessful. Oh, and Yanis gets through, but is repassed. So Tony Schmidt hangs on, as Jeffrey van Hooydonk did, the two Astra Mega drivers, both with mirrors full, both with a job on their hands. Schmidt made the mistake, gave away the place to Yanis all but, And then Yanis got into the Roger just too darn hot and couldn't hold on to it. Let's have a look again behind this. Yanis down the inside, looked good, looked done. Couldn't hold it out there. He kept it out of the gravel, but couldn't keep it up on the inside line. And again from the high angle. Oh dear, and just before the interesting part, away we go, back to the battle in hand, because of course they are getting to the Parabolica, where things can happen. But this time, Yanis closes once more on Tony Schmidt, not able to get close enough to do much about it. Yanis, along with Vitantonio Liuzzi, the first of the pit callers on lap 9. 7 laps to go, so that makes lap 19 now. Bjorn Verthime has been and gone, by the way. Lap 16 he came in. And when he was in the pits, the man who took over in the lead was Fernandino Monfardini for BCN. Yes, really. The last of the pit callers. Well, the last, along with Montanari, who was making his second call. We're back with more from Monza, as Verthime has the race in his grasp. Back at Monza, the final Formula 3000 race of the year, round 10 of the championship, and driver and team's titles both already decided. Best rookie of the year seems certain to be Vitantonio Liuzzi, whether or not he gets past Jeffrey Van Hooydonk. And Jaroslav Yanis, well, I said you don't often see moves, and he's not going to prove me wrong, down into the Variante Ascari. Difficult combination, sucks you in very quickly. The second part really seems to be the key. You've got to get the speed down there, or out of that right-hander into the left that leads onto this straight, you're all over the road on the exit, and that not only kills your speed down here, but allows you to be passed on the way down into the Parabolica. And again, the Parabolica always seems like it's a big flat-out corner, but in fact you don't just arrive and turn in. You arrive, you stamp on the middle pedal with both feet, and then you turn in when the speed is something that is a little bit more suitable. Arriving in 6th gear, 340 kilometers an hour or so, and turning in 4th gear, 175 k's. So it's as we were then at the front. Pit stops haven't changed a great deal. It's Verthime who still leads this race quite comfortably. Pantano's car broke down, of course, which leaves Friasaka and Sperafico, the other podium contenders. Patrick Friasaka in 2nd spot here, and right behind him is Riccardo Sperafico. Now, for Friasaka, this is starting to become worrying time, because he started 2 races before this here at Monza and has failed to finish either of them. Nerfed off by Toccicello in turn 1 into the Rettifilio in 2001. He lobbed it off at the Parabolica in 2002. So he's yet to finish at Monza and wants to do so on the podium to round out his season. And that's Riccardo Sperafico, of course, with his twin brother Rodrigo and his other brother Alexandra also racing. Cousin Rafael Sperafico races in Euro 3000. Riccardo won that in the year 2000. So plenty of talent emerging from that family. Whether any of them will manage to make it into Formula 1 remains to be seen, yes, of course, though. Riccardo at the moment is really all over the back of Friasaka and looking to try and put a kink in his plans to actually finish a race here at Monza. Friasaka from Wolfsburg in Austria, not the one in Germany where they make VWs. In my notes here it says his first experience of car racing was at the La Filière Racing School at Magny-Cours, of course the Elf-sponsored racing academy It says here, and I quote, the same school that broke Alain Prost and Damon Hill. Oh, so that was the problem. Broke in, perhaps, would be the correct phrase. Also, contentious comment here. It says he took longer than any other Formula 3000 driver in history to win his first event, ending the drought at the Hungaroring on his 31st attempt. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Vincenzo Sospiri, who took a full 6 years and more to win in a Formula 3000 style car, and even then that was in Formula Nippon. So I guess that doesn't really count, but Vincenzo famously raced at the front many times in Formula 3000 in the old style multiple chassis, multiple engine, multiple tile deal era, and also in Formula Nippon. And finally, after 3, was it 4 or 7, who can remember years of Nippon, got his name on a trophy and got to stand on the top shelf. Sospiri, a charming chap, but fated, it seems, not to become one of the great Formula 3000 stars. Speraffico dropping away a little bit from Friasaka, as the more astute of you, and with your eyes propped open, will have undoubtedly noticed. And those of you with sense for history, of course, we are, or have just passed September the 11th, which 2 years ago became one of the most infamous dates in history, certainly along with Pearl Harbor in American annals of infamy. But for Formula 3000 and racing fans, September the 11th, Laguna Seca 4 years ago was also a tragic day, because then former Formula 3000 driver Gonzalo Rodriguez was killed in a freak accident at the Corkscrew during qualifying for the kart race in his Penske. And Gonzo was remembered by friends and family, and some of his ex-race colleagues, Justin Wilson, Juan Pablo Montoya, who beat Gonzalo to the title in '98, and Justin Wilson, who was his teammate at Astromega, were among those who were present at a dinner in Bologna. Gonzalo Rodriguez, one of the more charming race drivers you would want to meet. And 4 years ago, a couple of days ago, he lost his life in a tragic and freak accident at Laguna Seca. So Gonzalo Rodriguez being remembered by the Formula 3000 world, those who knew him and those who only ever got to see him race in spectacular fashion. Bjorn Verthime with the trophy for the 3000 Championship safely tucked away. I bet Thomas Enger thought that for a while. We won't go any further that direction. Here he is, Bjorn Verthime, heading down into the Parabolica. Behind him still, Patrick Friasaka holding on to second, Riccardo Speraffico with third spot, and it looks as though they are likely to remain that way. Ooh, and are we going to see a change? Oh, don't do that. Oh, my goodness. Oh. Mental note from frustrated of commentary position to TV director: if you're going to show us a replay, don't tease, show it. This is the 3 rules of television sport. Tell them what they're going to see, let them see it, tell them what they've just seen. Don't show them a bit of something and then whip it away immediately. Was that or was that not a successful move on an Astromega car? Can't tell you whether Liuzzi got by or not. Nice little slow-mo of Riccardo Speraffico's car, and an astute eye in the truck has picked up on a 4-inch square black and white monitor that he has got nose wing damage. Not quite sure where that came from. His nose run into somebody's splitter, doesn't it, with a V that low down in the nose. But debris seems less likely, perhaps, but who can say? Ah, dear oh dear, 2 laps remaining, and contact as our erstwhile race leader, Fernandino Monfardini is out of the race. And Alessandro Piccolo joins him. So in one fell swoop, 2 Italians out. And let's see if there's a bit of voluble Italianate discussion. Not at all. There will be, however, and no prizes for guessing why. Here's a clue. Notice any differences between the 2 cars? You wouldn't, would you? Because they are painted the same colour, because they're from the same team. Dear. 2 laps from the end of the season, the drivers conspire to wreck both the team's cars and take them out of the race. Bjorn Verthime passes under yellow flags the debris. He has 1 lap to go, or less than that now. He's already threaded his way through the Rettifilio and avoided chortling too hard at the damage. Through the Roggia, where we now find our 2nd and 3rd place battle, with Friasaka ahead of Sperafico. Antonio Liuzzi seems did get ahead of Jeffrey van Hooijdonk for 4th place. Tony Schmidt holding off Jaroslav Yanis for 6th on the final lap though. And Enrico Toccicello in 8th place. Christian Montanari back to where he started from in 9th spot, qualified there and is currently there. But Bjorn Verthime back to where he started from as well. Winner at Monza last year, and 1 corner and several hundred meters away from being a winner at Monza this year. Friasaka will not be passed for 2nd unless he bins it in the Parabolica, but the champion comes across the line to win again this year, and it's victory at Monza. Bjorn Verthime wins in fine style. Not quite never-headed, headed away from the start, but got his act into gear, and calmly, coolly and confidently, as the champion should, took the lead back from the 2 drivers in front of him, and he wins in Monaco to round out what for him has been a really very impressive season indeed. And with that, he breaks Justin Wilson's current records as there's a scramble across the line. Liuzzi leading the next group through to rack up the most points ever scored by a driver in Formula 3000, and indeed also to get that 90% podium finishing rate. So just to confirm then, the unofficial result: Bjorn Verthime for Arden, the Swede, wins the race. Patrick Friasaka in 2nd. Riccardo Sperafico will join them on the podium. Antonio Liuzzi sneaked by Jeffrey van Hooijdonk, as we kind of almost saw and perhaps had guessed that it might be happening. A couple of laps from home, 4th and 5th. Tony Schmidt 6th, with Jaroslav Yanis 6th and an 8th. So close behind him at the end. Enrico Toccicello in 8th place. Christian Montanari in 9th for Coloni. And they were the finishers. Fernandino Monfardini and Alessandro Piccolo, both for BCN, tangled a lap from home. They will get the classification as 10th and 11th, and fittingly won't get points for that. DNFs for Giorgio Pantano, a crash for Raffaele Giammaria and Townsend Bell, which put Bell out on the spot and Giammaria in the pits a lap later. And Sam Hancock from the back of the grid didn't get away from the start for Supernova and the Jordan Junior team, and you have to say that probably sums up their season. A very disappointing year indeed for David Sears' operation, pretty much any way you look at it. And that brings us to the end of the season, and Bjorn Verthime, winner in San Marino to open his account, 2nd in Spain, Austria and Monaco. No points at the Nürburgring when he was lackluster 13th, and then got back on track with 2nd in France, a win in Great Britain, 2nd in Germany and in Hungary, and rounds out with his 3rd win of the season here in Italy. 78 points the total, clear of what Justin Wilson managed in his championship winning year, and well, he's either won or been second in every race he's finished. And for Bjorn Verthime, the winner and the champion, the Swedish national anthem. So Bjorn Verthime claims his third win of the year, 2 for championship runner-up Riccardo Sperafico there on the right-hand side of the picture. He won in Austria and in Germany. 2 for Giorgio Pantano, who failed to finish here. He won in Spain and in France. Antonio Liuzzi is 4th in the championship, rookie of the year. And Patrick Friasaka on the left of the podium finishes with 1 win to his credit in Hungary last time out. But of course Friasaka's season really stymied by breaking his arm in Spain. He didn't score in Spain and missed Austria, Monaco, failed to score at the Nürburgring and in France as well. So he barely scored in half the races of the season. That's your top 3 then here for this 5th Formula 3000 race at Monza, the 10th and final of the 2003 season. And now we head into what for the teams and particularly their families of the team employees is going to be a very disquieting winter, I'm sure. Plans afoot to try and keep the series going, to bring it back to some of its former glory, and I certainly hope that we will be back next year on Eurosport to cover Formula 3000 once more for you. Thanks to everybody who has helped us out through the year, especially to Gareth Rees. From me, Martin Haven.